non-Metroid podcast. My name is Andy Spiteri, reunited actually, with Dakota Lasky. Dak, how you feeling, dude?
Downgraded, right? Yeah.
Yeah, downgraded, that's right.
I'm feeling a lot better, man. Thank you. I am, definitely doing better than I was last week and the week before. So that's certainly saying a lot. And I am happy to be able to just sit at my computer and do some work and talk about some Metroid, because I haven't talked about Metroid. It sucks. Like, Metroid Dread came out, I was like pumped for a while, and then I got sick. And I'm like, ugh, like I didn't even like think about gaming at all or any video games whatsoever for a little bit. And now my brain feels good and my body feels good and my Metroid talkability is back. So I'm glad to be back and talking about some Metroid Dread and all that good stuff. So yeah, I'm feeling good.
That's great. I'm glad to have you back in the fold. Although I do have to say, I think Doom did a good job in your stead. He was a last minute call up, but guy's a natural. So shout out to you, Doom. I know that you're listening.
Yeah, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Very clutch when necessary. So I do appreciate it, man, because I was not feeling good. So it definitely means a lot you're able to step in. And also, it was a great episode. And I'm actually really bummed I wasn't able to answer a bunch of those questions. I want to maybe when you're not around, I'm just going to put out an episode just by myself where I just go back and respond to all of them or something. But yeah, it's a great job with the episode. Thank you so much, man.
Well, that day is coming up actually pretty soon. I think a month and change. I'm going to be on a little bit of a hiatus for a few weeks as I finally tie the knot. So you will definitely have your opportunity to do just that. So yeah, but we've got a kind of a whole bevy of topics to cover here. We want to, of course, go over the Sakamoto Diaries and just talk about some of the footage, some of the comments that he made. And we are going to, earlier, either today or yesterday, I had tweeted out something to the effect of, I think Metroid Dread is a bigger deal than Metroid Prime 4. And so we're going to talk about that. And maybe I want to add some context to my tweet, because I think a lot of people misinterpreted what I said. So we're going to get to that first. But Dak, I know that you had, mentioned that you're a big fan of GDQ, which just took place this weekend. A lot of runs happened. I think Metroid Prime 2 Echoes in particular went down. So I just wanted to give you the floor to just shine a light on maybe what it is, and if people aren't watching it, why they should.
Oh well, yeah, I think it's over by now. But GDQ, obviously they do summer games done quick, and AGDQ is, I believe, during the winter time usually, and I love watching the Metroid speed runs. There was a really great Metroid Prime 2 speed run that was done, I believe, sometime earlier in the week. I don't remember exactly, but it was a great run. I believe I know Bash Prime was doing commentary, and that was really great. And then there was also, it was a Metroid Prime 2 Echoes any percent run done by, I believe, Mr. Miguel. So they did a great job. Mr. Miguel specifically really broke that game open. I love watching the Metroid Prime speedrun specifically because of how crazy they get, and in Echoes he's immediately out of bounds, I think, within the first few minutes of the game. So it was a really awesome run. I enjoyed it a lot. I love watching Metroid speedruns. I'm a huge fan of Metroid speedrunning, have been for a while, and without fail, every single GDQ they do a pretty maybe not everyone, but almost everyone, it seems, there's a really good Metroid run. So I don't know. That was something that when I was feeling, when I was when I wasn't feeling great, I was watching that and I was like, oh, this is awesome. So that that brought my spirits up a little bit. Shout outs to Mr. Miguel, who did a fantastic job on the sticks, and yeah, Bash Prime also great job on the commentary too. Yeah, I really enjoyed watching it. Definitely, if you haven't, I know it's not really your thing, but I definitely recommend it, man. If you haven't checked out some of the best runs, because they really they give you a whole new perspective on Metroid games, I think. So it really, I think it gives you a new appreciation for the games too.
But yeah, I will say, so speedrunning isn't I guess that's the best way to put it. It's not really my thing, but the one game that I do love watching being ran quickly is Super Metroid. Some of the stuff that they can do is just like it's like from the Matrix. It's like, how is this even possible? And Dak and I actually did an episode on that way back in the vault, so you should go check that out. But yeah, some of the stuff that they can do in Super Metroid and you know what, Zero Mission Fusion is pretty bonkers. So I do enjoy watching that. But yeah, and you know what, if Dread is there next year, which I think it has a pretty good shot of being there next year.
I would
definitely
put money on
tuning
it.
into that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a new release. It's going to be a pretty big deal, and I'm sure there are going to be tons of people out there that are going to be running it, so I wouldn't be surprised if it gets submitted to some GDQ. So yeah, I would love to see that as well.
Well, let's speaking of Dread, let's actually talk about Metroid Dread, the developmental history video that Nintendo of America, I was gonna say Nintendo of America, but just Nintendo in general, I guess, released. And they're interviewing series director Sakamoto, and he's basically giving an overview and a history of Metroid Dread. We're not gonna do it watch along style like we did with the first two Treehouse videos, because this one's only about 6.5 minutes, and about half of that is just kind of explaining what Metroid is, what makes it special, the history of Metroid, which, you know, I'm going to be assuming everybody listening to this podcast already probably knows. But
Yeah.
there is some interesting tidbits in there, and there is some cool shots and some new footage that we did not see in the Treehouse live videos. And, you know, this is really the last bit of footage from Metroid Dread that, you know, we have to cover, because we've done both videos. We've broken down the trailer extensively. So, you know, the Metroid Dread coverage will, of course, continue, but this, I don't know, this might be the last time we, like, hone really in on new footage and new, you know, video of Metroid Dread for the foreseeable future, until hopefully we get another trailer pretty soon. So, I'm excited about this.
Yeah, it's really kind of the last thing we haven't covered. You're right. They haven't. I mean, they have the Dread reports kind of coming out, but like we said before the show, they don't have like too many new details, and they are kind of spoilery for some people because they did go into some details that, like, I guess weren't covered in the Treehouse. I'm some people I've shared it with some people, and I've seen people kind of shy away from reading them. So I guess we'll see how we approach those, but. Yeah, that's the development history video. I feel like is just something we absolutely have to talk about, because aside from just, you know, the Treehouse footage, which, you know, we're just watching like the VODs from this, you know, essentially what they put out. This is something like they kind of like specifically like are emphasizing, right? Like it's like, okay, we're not just making Metroid Dread, but like also like, yeah, we know like there's been a whole, you know, development history behind it, and it is touched upon here. Like it certainly isn't like an in-depth development history or, you know, dev diary or anything. It certainly glosses over it, but it is interesting to actually hear it from Sakamoto himself, and you know, after all these years, you know.
It's just kind of like a cool acknowledgement of like all the hurdles and the troubles that they faced over the years, and like it's you know, like you said, it's certainly not, you know, behind the curtain, so to speak, but it is kind of cool to say, or to at least hear him say, like, you know what, we tried it once, and actually we tried it again, but, you know, we can kind of get there as Sakamoto starts there. So I'm playing this video, and about the first, let's say, minute and 10 seconds are kind of like just a nice recap of, like, you know, what Metroid is, the journey so far, what started in Metroid 1, and then Return of Samus, and then Super Metroid, and then Metroid Fusion. It's where we get to a minute and, let's say, a minute and 15 in. Sakamoto says, the series has chronicled the uncanny relationship between these Metroids and the hero and Samus, but this game will mark an end to that story arc. And then he throws this cheeky line in. We're hoping fans of this series will wonder, what does the mark the end of the story arc mean as they play the game? So this line has really kind of sent everyone into a frenzy, wondering, like, really, what does that mean? So obviously his goal is accomplished here, and we've heard everything from, like, you know, Samus is gonna die to, like, there's no more Metroids ever, and everything in between. So, you know, this is just the little twinkle in his eye when he said that really gets me, and I really just loved that little tease, because you know what, there are so many different ways that you can interpret that, and you know, we've talked about them before here on the show, but it's just it's something that I love. It's like that whimsical Nintendo magic almost.
Yeah, you know, it's actually like, it's so crazy that they're really making a game that is like wrapping up that story arc because that's exactly what I've wanted. So I'm so pumped for that. And I like that like they're emphasizing like the finality of this particular arc. So like obviously there's going to be more Metroid. I don't think they're going to like kill Samus either. So yeah, I think he's really like he wants you to make sure like okay, like the X are involved, sure, the Chozo and the Galactic Federation, whatnot, they're all involved, but this is really going to importantly be about, and specifically be about, like Samus and the Metroids too. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
really, an important detail because a lot of what we've seen has nothing to do with Metroids in terms of, the gameplay footage and, you know, like cutscenes and then, the Dread report, like all that kind of stuff is very mostly focused on, the Emmys, the X, and, what's going on ZDR and all that kind of stuff. But here, I think he's very much implying that like, Samus and the Metroids, that's, just as important here as it was, in Super Metroid or Metroid 2 or Metroid Fusion and whatnot. So I'm really curious exactly what, how he is looking at it that way because maybe we aren't going to continue to see Metroids in the future, whether they exist in some form, whether, in one way or another, I'm not sure. But I think that is like the key detail there to focus on, at least from my interpretation.
Yeah, and there's like, I mean, really, the end of the story with Samus and the Metroids. We've kind of talked about it, but that you could go in so many different directions. Does that mean the end of the space pirates using Metroids? Does that mean the end of like Samus and the baby Metroid with the continual referencing
Yeah.
to the baby over the course of the games? I have to imagine that like Metroid Dread is just kind of kickstarting maybe this Dark Chozo arc, or maybe it's gonna finish it in the game. I'm not sure, but I do want. And by the way, I want to encourage everybody that's listening to this, if you can, pull up the Nintendo Metroid Dread developmental history video and watch along with us here. But I fast forwarded a couple seconds here, Dak, to 1 minute and 28 seconds. Speaking of the Chozo, there is like a really cool shot of just some like Chozo
Hieroglyphics.
yeah, hieroglyphics.
Yeah.
That was the word I was looking for. Really
Yeah, that
cool.
shot's awesome.
Oh, you got like the cool power armor. It's there's some they almost look like Emmys on the side here, like those little blue things. They kind of resemble Emmys a little
Oh,
bit.
that's not what I was thinking at all. So what I was,
What did you see when you saw them?
so it's looking from what I'm looking at it, you have like the big guy on the left, right? Like the huge like commander it looks like of like it seems like the good Chozo army, like the classic Chozo army, I guess. And like you can see it's like a mix of gold and blue, but like the soldiers, like the Chozo warriors and the armor, they're mostly gold and seem to represent like the good side and or that side at least and are being ordered by that giant, figure on the left with the arm cannon. On the right, where you see like those figures, it looks like they're falling like top to bottom almost. It looks like those are like the Dark Chozo. They're kind of falling from grace or whatever. They're becoming Dark Chozo, and you can see like their bodies are more blue than gold rather than being more gold than blue. So that's how I was looking at it. Like there, you can see those Dark Chozo falling to the right side, from top to bottom, and it seems like the Chozo on the left are kind of being ordered against them, and maybe that's kind of hieroglyphics of like a war between the two Chozo in the past potentially, or in being foretold in the future. I don't know. That's what I saw in it.
I mean, I could definitely see that. It looks like it definitely looks like we've got some kind of militaristic Chozo leader there on the side for sure. Maybe
Yeah.
that is just opposing factions, but very they've got the distinct shoulder pads, they've got the
Mm-hmm.
spears. It's very power suit esque. So we know that we're gonna see a living, breathing Chozo in this game at some point. So that is like incredibly exciting in and of itself. So much so much to go on here. But let's keep going here while Sakamoto is talking here. He's just kind of explaining again like what Metroid is, what makes it unique, and all that good stuff. One thing that I did think was kind of cool is that there's some new cutscenes here, and then they talk about Mercury Steam and how this is the studio that like, and we all knew this already, of course, but like this is the studio that once they really saw what they were capable of and what their potential was when they made Metroid Samus Returns, that they were finally able to realize this goal that they had. So like it's kind of weird to think that like even way back, because like I figure that the premise must have been kind of the same here. So it really is kind of astounding to think that like this story premise, whatever it is, and obviously we know that the Emmys are there, but it's lived on for like 15 years and they never gave up on it. So I think that that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, well, he goes into the whole, he talks about how the game was originally conceived 15 years ago in 2006, which lines up with when the game was originally kind of found out about in the media and reported in like Game Informer and all that. With that copy of that magazine I have right here, where Metroid Dread's listed, it's very, they had those plans originally that somehow got leaked out at E3 that year, and then they weren't satisfied with the technology back then to make it happen. I mean, I think about that, and obviously, I'm gonna take their word for it. But like, was it really that hard back then to do this? I don't know. I feel like this game could have still happened on the DS. I feel like it would have been really cool on the DS actually if you're having going between the two screens as the ME kind of follows you. So like obviously I don't know anything about game development, so I'm going to take their word for it. They weren't satisfied with the technology back then to make it happen. I feel like it could have happened though. But I think the really interesting point is when he says the idea came back again, they tried again and it nearly happened, but they still couldn't, make it happen all the way through. And when we talked on our history of Metroid Dread episode that we did before the game got revealed, we went into a section where we talked about how around like E3 2009, 2010, Nintendo America apparently saw like a prototype for Metroid Dread. I feel like that's what he's talking about. Like that second attempt was an actual prototype that really did happen and was really shown off to employees, and they weren't happy with it. So maybe the details of that report were actually correct, because that seems to line up with that. I mean, he's obviously jumping around here, but that second, like we distinctly heard that there was the first attempt that people that initially was heard about, the second attempt, which could have which is the prototype, it seems, around 2010, and then the third attempt is now what we know is the actual Metroid Dread. So I thought that was really interesting because he talks about Mercury Steam being able to pick it up. I feel like the technology could have been there, but the fact that like it really did seem like they tried a second time, like I'm really curious like what that was, because like you said, like this idea and the story has like sustained this whole time. Like I'm not sure, we really won't know, I guess, ever how much it has changed from 2006 2010 to now, right? But like what like where would the ideas at maybe 4 or 5 years after the initial conception on the second try for the prototype to like be made but still not work? Like I would really love to know what that is, because it seems like now everything is kind of falling into place, but I wonder like what the obstacles were the first two attempts. So that's really interesting that he talks about that here.
So I have a kind of a to piggyback off what you're saying. I have an interesting observation about well, obviously we knew 15 years ago when 2006 Metroid Dread was revealed that they tried it then. For whatever reason, the technology wasn't there. Which, to your point, like I don't know, maybe there's stuff. I mean, I'm sure there's stuff we don't know, but having this hulking enemy chase after you feels sort of similar to what the SAX does in a way. So I don't know. Maybe they could have found a way. Maybe they couldn't have. Like you said, I don't know anything about game development. But the thing that interests me is like the second attempt, which came a handful of years after. So Sakamoto doesn't actually say like what year or give a timeline as to when the second attempt came up. But we've kind of been led to believe it's 2009, 2010, which is funny because it's the same technology. So like in 2006, you would have had the Nintendo DS and you would have had the Wii. And then in 2010, you would have had the Nintendo DS and you would have had the Wii. So it's kind of funny to think that like the whatever didn't work, they tried again on the same system. I would have thought that maybe they would have tried again on like maybe the 3DS or the Wii U. And maybe they tried in 2006 on the Nintendo DS, that for whatever reason they couldn't get that to work, and then they tried it again on the Nintendo Wii, but then they couldn't get that to work either. But then I was thinking to myself, yeah, that would like really kind of line up pretty closely with Metroid Other M as well. So like maybe, I don't know, maybe that was a factor, but I think the timeline of that and just the systems that were available is interesting to think about, because like if it didn't work once for the DS or the Wii, I wonder what they thought could have changed in order to make that work again.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, I guess by then, the DS had some changes, but like the Wii hadn't, had any upgrades. And we talked about that in the Discord, right? Like the DS got a bunch of
Hmm.
changes, but like the Wii didn't get any changes. And if anything, got like the Wii Mini. That's like it. So like what and then eventually Other M did come out on the Wii. So like what like he and there's an interview that we talked about in that episode too, where he's like talking about he's talking about like Other M in promotion. He's like, this project isn't that other thing, like it's this, but like why, like it could have been that. And I'm wondering, like, were they like maybe this was being potentially developed for the DS and they weren't happy with the DS, and then the Wii development was just completely unrelated because they wouldn't have like those assets would never have translated. But like, if they were able to eventually have the Wii development happen, why couldn't that have been Metroid Dread? Why didn't they just make it then? Like, why not just have Team Ninja make Metroid Dread at the time instead of having them make Other M when that game was able to be made? So, or like, why didn't they have Metro, or why, I guess, why didn't they have I guess Retro Studios in a different story, but still, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if Other M could have been made and it was made on the same system, and that's something that we would think that's probably technology they might have tried a Metroid Dread on, maybe. Why wouldn't they try it
Hmm.
there? And if it was just for the DS, why not make Other M Dread anyway? Like, I don't know. It's weird that how those things don't kind of line up. Yeah, some good points.
And there must be something that is the core concept of Dread that just made it really difficult. And I mean, we probably think that core concept right now is the Phantom Cloak, the Emmys chasing you, and maybe that is the core concept. But like, something would have
Maybe there's
had to
something
have.
else.
There might, yeah, maybe there's something
Yeah.
else that just really made it difficult to pull off. So who knows? But I do want to keep going here. I'm at about 325, 326 ish. So we're Sakamoto right now is talking about the Emmys and how they stalk you throughout the game, and they're these terrifying robots that can basically insta kill you. Getting some cool new screens of the different Emmys here and kind of their upright position. I'm at 326, so they look kind of like Chozo's really, and like their standing upright position here. It's kind of uncanny, the resemblance. But of course, these were created by the Galactic Federation. So yeah, they look very much like Chozo to me in that particular scene, though.
It, and also the thing about that is like, uh, okay, so like that's the one thing about the opening of Dread that doesn't line up with the ending of Fusion, I guess. Like, at the end of Fusion, wasn't Samus kind of worried that she was going to be a fugitive because she destroyed the BSL and whatnot? But now she's still chummy with the Federation still? I don't know. I am a little thrown off by that part of the story, like that part of the premise, because I don't know. Maybe I've just been interpreting the ending of Fusion wrong this whole time, but I feel like I haven't. I feel like the story is set up where she was supposed to kind of be like not on their good side. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, either is that covered at the beginning of the game and taken care of, which if it is, I'll be like, okay, I guess, it is what it is, even though I was kind of hoping for more. But maybe they do cover that, like, because he does say in this, like, you don't need to, like, have played the other games to know what's going on. But I feel like also that he's kind of, maybe he'll resolve some kind of things there just to make the premise cleaner. Like, that's something that I'm like about. Like, I was hoping for more between Samus and the Federation going into this game. I guess I'm kind of not getting that, which, okay, it is what it is. But or maybe like he just completely glosses over it. I don't know. I am kind of thrown off by that she's like, I mean, I guess she's technically fighting the Federation because the Emmys are Federation and they're attacking her, but like that's not really like it is what I was asking for. Like, it was like a monkey paw, like, I guess, like, the monkey like finger like curled back, and I guess I got what I wanted, but not really how I wanted it. So that part kind of throws me off on the premise of the game. Just something
Uh,
I'm
you know,
thinking about.
I wouldn't say so. Everything I've seen so far, it doesn't really suggest that Samus isn't at odds with the Galactic Federation. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know. I feel like it definitely does. Like,
I haven't really interpreted it that way. Like they haven't really touched on it. Like the Emmys were, were made by the Galactic Federation, so obviously something happened to them and they went rogue. So not necessarily the GF sending the Emmys after Samus, but I mean maybe the whole gone rogue thing is a hoax and they're kind of sending her into maybe a death trap or something like that. Who knows? But one thing that I will point out is,
but why would she trust them then? I don't know.
Well, she might not. Who knows, right? But I will point out that I think that one of the things that Other M at least tried to establish, but kind of got lost in translation. Shout out to that great video, by the way, the Other M That Never Was. But I think that one of the things that they tried to establish is that there is a difference between the Galactic Federation and the Galactic Federation Army, and it's, if I'm interpreting that right, it's more so the army that is the corrupt body rather than the Federation itself. So, she could definitely be on outs with the army and not necessarily the Galactic Federation, if that makes sense.
I don't know if that works for me because in Federation there's no distinction there, or in Fusion there's no distinction there. When there are those shady,
you're right.
When there's that shady, they're not Federation Army people. They're Galactic Federation. So I don't really buy that distinction. I think that's BS. That's why that doesn't work for me, because I'm looking at the Metroid Dread, the first report, and Samus's prologue. She essentially says the Federation like she's informed of the Federation, of the footage that the Federation receives. And then she goes to explore what happens after their unit vanishes, the ME unit vanishes. So she's being, she's going there with no problem with the Federation. That's kind of why I'm like from her own words in this thing from Samus herself, it does not seem like she has any issue with the Federation at this moment. And that's why I'm kind of all thrown off. Is this completely glossed over? Which would suck, because that would be incongruent with the story. That's not how it was told. Or is it taken care of at the beginning of the game and we don't know that yet? And then it's kind of, immediately kind of wrapped up and you move on, which, okay, it is what it is. That's kind of not what I was looking for, but, whatever. So that's the only thing with these Emmys that I'm having a slight issue with.
I can see where you're coming from. I get what you're saying, but I don't know that I would... I don't know if I'd write that off yet. I mean, there's just...
I'm not doing that.
There's so much that we don't know,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
They could very well be the Galactic Federation setting her up. That's actually kind of cool now that I suggest that.
That would be cool. Yeah, exactly. If that is the case, then I will be very happily, pleasantly surprised. And if they're leading me if they're leading me astray, then they're doing a great job. So I'm 100% not writing it off. I'm not, I'm just looking at it from how I've been expecting the game. So, it's hard to shake that, but I'm still going into this game with, still going into this game with open mind in terms of the story, because I have no idea what the story is, because we barely learned anything. So I'm not going to write anything off at all for sure.
So I'm going to skip just a little bit ahead here. I'm going to go to, let me give you a good timestamp. I am at 4:44. So 4:44. And Sakamoto is right now talking about all of the, while there does seem to be a lot of new things, there is going to be some returning elements as well. So we've got kind of a cool little sizzle reel here of Samus. She's in Morph Ball mode, so we do finally see the Morph Ball here. We didn't see that in either Treehouse video. So 4:48, she's got these 3 little Morph Ball things chasing her. Very much give me the Spider Guardian vibes, which I'm all about. Which, by the way, I said that I really liked that boss battle in our Discord, and a lot of people backed me up, so I was pleasantly surprised to hear that. But going a little bit forward here, at about 4:49, we see what looks to be some sort of mini boss. It's like a what the heck are those things called? Now I can't remember. That Samus absorbs to get the Omega Cannon. Whatever they are, they look like Mother Brain, and they're shooting units? Out. Yes, thank you. And they're shooting out the Rinkas at you from either side as well. So I think you can very easily make that connection right there.
Yeah, boom. If very the connection cool. The connection was already there for sure, though.
Yeah, well, even more so now. They really drilled it home.
Yeah.
4:55. Let's go to 4:54 just so that we have time to process it here. But Samus is underwater. That looks great. That's just a really cool shot. I mean, nothing really revolutionary about this shot or anything. I just thought it looked really, really pretty. The water just is a striking blue, and almost gave me those Metroid Prime vibes. And like you see all the little bugs, and like you can just shoot them. And they don't really damage you, but it's just kind of like a cool little effect for the environment. Same kind of vibe I got watching this little shot.
Yeah, I love little details like that. It just makes it's more immersive, right? It makes the world feel alive.
Shout out too to the map in the top corner, which looks like it actually tells you that you are underwater, unless it's just a coincidence that that map portion is blue. But man, I really love that. If they could tell you like what if they can make the map a little bit more interactive, I'm all about that. So as you know, I've been replaying Fusion a little bit the last couple weeks, and like one of the things that drives me nuts about Fusion is the map doesn't change like when the SAX destroys the walls. So one of my gripes for Metroid is like, man, I wish the map would like interact and update and whatever a little bit more. So I'm hoping that that is kind of a telltale sign that they are going to do just that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely agreed.
Yeah. All right, well, let's keep the sizzle reel going here. We see 503. Samus has got that sick slide going on underneath the Emmy's legs. That just looks so good. That looks like the Emmy at the very beginning of the game, the one that was kind of knackered up. So that'll obviously be probably a baseline ability that you can just start with. So that's pretty cool. So here we go. Sakamoto right now. So we're at about 520. And he's kind of talking about what makes a Metroidvania, a Metroidvania where you can get an item and then you can expand the area of, the area that you can explore. And I thought that he put that in a really eloquent way, actually. So that was pretty cool to see. Tons of different different enemies and stuff like that. They really show a lot of Morph Ball in this, which I'm all about. But yeah, there's a bunch of different cool new abilities, and I'm gonna actually dog on one of these new abilities called the Spider Magnet. So this ability lets you like latch onto certain walls or ceilings or anything like that. There's all this blue goop on the wall or ceiling, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, dude, back in Metroid Fusion, Samus could just like grab the monkey bars and climb. So I don't know about the spider magnet, but it is pretty cool. It looks like you can do some cool things with it.
I mean, what are they gonna do? Make monkey bars an ability? Like,
yes,
and here's the new technology, monkey bars. I mean, I wouldn't be against it at all. But I think this is kind of their
do kicks up there. That'd be awesome.
That. Yeah. I mean, I think all this stuff is really cool. I'm actually really glad that they go into, that Sakamoto goes into just like what Metroid is, which I think is great because like you can tell from throughout the entirety of this video that Sakamoto and Nintendo in general are anticipating a lot of new people playing the game. Like they want, people who have never played Metroid, maybe just like Metroidvania, just like Metroid. They never played it before. Like, okay, it doesn't matter. Like we've got the prologue for you. Like, we're going to tell you what the story is. We're going to get you up to speed. And it doesn't matter if you've played Metroid before because it's going to feel nice and smooth. You're going to feel as powerful as Samus as you're running around, exploring, sliding around, and monkey bar and spider magneting around and all that. Like he gives you like the expectations because they're not just anticipating this being a game for Metroid fans, which I think is huge, right? Like they're not just making a Metroid game to like make Metroid fans shut up here, right? Because they could have easily done that and they can be like, all right, here's your Metroid game. Like, okay, like we'll see you in 10 years. But they're actually anticipating a lot of new fans entering the series, a lot of new people playing the games, which is pretty huge. So I like that he spends some time here to actually just explain what Metroid is. There are going to be a lot of people, kids, adults, whoever, who have never played Metroid, who have never played this kind of game, and might be, a little hesitant because they don't know what they're getting into, and especially because he's already talked about, it's the last game of the story, that's even more so to emphasize that, this is still a game for you, even if you've never played these games before. So I like that this is a game for both, Metroid fans who've been waiting for this forever and people who've never played Metroid before.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's a great observation. You can really tell that like really from start to finish, you could watch this video and you don't even have to know what Metroid is, and you can kind of like get a grasp and get up to speed about what you're going to be in for, what kind of the general backstory is. So they did a really good job, and yeah, this video is for new players, and I think that they did anticipate a lot of new people seeing this, which is really reassuring actually that they're putting this much emphasis on new people trying out Metroid or watching this after E3 was finished. So makes me a little bit more I don't know, confident in their push for Metroid Dread so far. Which frankly, the push for Metroid Dread has already been so much more than the push for Samus Returns ever was, or even Metroid Prime 3 if you want to go really back. So I'm pretty confident so far in everything that we've seen here. And videos like this, I think, really help get people up to speed. I kind of glossed over it. I'm looking for a timestamp right now, but I'm having trouble finding it. But there is a prologue that shows in glorious HD an ex-parasite, kind of the events of fusion. You see the iconic shot of Samus waking up in her fusion suit. It just looks it's awesome, and I can't.
So
I'm
good.
like super stoked to see that prologue because, like,
Same.
say what you will about Other M, but man, that opening prologue where they did the Super Metroid stuff was awesome.
Yeah, I mean look, as someone who really doesn't like Other M, I obviously have to accept the fact that the opening of the game is awesome. With that, I mean, it's one of the best parts I think of any Metroid game. It looks so cool. Like they really front loaded that game, and so yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the prologue of this game, especially as a huge Fusion fan. We've talked about like the Fusion remake if that ever happens, but like this is a little taste, right? We're getting some remasteredness to Fusion a little bit by getting those kinds of scenes, and I'm even interested because he talks about get you up to speed. I think it might even touch upon before Fusion, so who knows? Like I think there's still a lot more we haven't seen from the beginning of this game. That even here we've seen some new stuff that very few people are talking about. So I'm looking forward to like the full opening. I cannot wait to like just jump in and see what the whole story has to offer and how they like sum it all up and get us all up to speed.
Yeah, and like I think there's, like you said, there's so much left. I think that the Dread suit is going to be
what happened to the suit
there. I think that is probably going to be what kicks us off, and like what happened to Samus after the events of Fusion. By the way, if you're looking for that time code 143, we got oh my god, this just looks so good. So we've got the X-Parasite. We've got if you pause it right at 145, you can see Samus with just infected with X, and she's undergoing surgery here. And then the money shot 147, Samus wakes up in the fusion suit. Look at that thing.
It looks so cool.
God, that looks good.
That's why I'm like, I wish we still had it. Like I wish we still had the fusion suit. I want to know what happened, and I wonder if we'll get the option to maybe get it back, or even better, the Dread suit brings back the cool like hooks, like the blades on her arm. Like, I would just bring that back. I can't wait to see how the Dread suit evolves, and I can't wait to see how we got to that point too, because it's like, wow, it's like it very clearly came from the fusion suit, like how visceral and organic it looks, but there's some new stuff going on there. I can't wait to, like, yeah, the more I think about it, like there's so much more we don't know from what's happening in Dread and the end of Fusion, and that like there's a lot that's happened, and I can't wait for them to tell us about it. I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's such an exciting time right now for Metroid fans. Here's a question for you, Dak, and I don't even have an answer to this myself, but like, how much more Metroid Dread do you think we'll actually see before the game releases? Like, I feel like it's almost like a case of like, this is what we're doing. We gave you these gameplay videos. We've given you this developmental history. The game releases in like 3 short months. Like, really, what else? I could see them releasing maybe one more trailer, but I feel like there's really not much else that they need to do to sell this game. And I'm not saying they don't advertise it, but like, how much more do we really need to know about it? I wonder how much more we'll actually see.
No, I think you're definitely on the right track. I don't think we're going to really see much at all. I mean, we're probably going to get, a few more Dread reports, right? And that'll probably give us maybe a couple new screenshots. Mm-hmm. I don't think we're going to get a new trailer. If anything, it'll probably be tied to like the big marketing push they do just before the game comes out. Because I really don't think they need to show much more. Like, I don't want to know much more about the story. I want to experience it for myself when I play the game. And I think everyone, I mean, a lot of people have really seen a lot of good footage. Like they showed off the game at the treehouse in a big way. And the trailers we've seen, plus, all the other content they've done, I think mixed together provides a good amount of stuff to go over and pour over or get excited about. So I feel like they don't want to show too much, and I think they've kind of struck that balance. So I don't think we're really going to see that much more, except like the big marketing push where they're going to reuse a lot of that stuff and, mix it together in a new way to promote the game before it comes out again. So I'm interested, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they will drop another trailer and just surprise it. I feel like they won't though. I think they're going to keep the rest of the game under wraps. They've already shown honestly a lot. We've already seen 2 areas. They've shown a lot of the game actually, considering what the game might. I mean, maybe the game is just that much more vast than we're expecting, but they have shown, I think, a good amount.
You know what? We completely glossed over this at the top of the show and didn't even think about talking about it, but 5.5 million people and counting have seen Metroid Dread in the lead-in for the Nintendo Switch OLED trailer. So that's that's pretty cool detail right there, that this new Switch model is showing off Metroid Dread in a big way, launches on the same day as Metroid Dread. I don't think it's impossible that maybe there is a Dread themed Switch OLED. To be honest, when I saw the OLED, I was like, oh cool, a Nintendo Switch model, a new color based on the Emmys for Metroid Dread, because I didn't notice the changes right away. But I guess that's neither here nor there right now. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool. Nintendo chose Metroid Dread to lead into their new Switch model. So, like I said, 5.5 million people at least have seen that right now. So that's some good exposure for it.
Definitely not insignificant whatsoever. And that, I thought that was huge. Aside from my thoughts on the actual system itself, to see Metroid as not just promoting the game, but the first one promoting it. They led off with that, like you said. That's when does that happen? Never, we'll take it when we can get it. There are only so many opportunities like that, and a Metroid game actually got one of them, and I think Dread looked really good as the first game. It really did, show off, I think, the capabilities of the system, what they are. So, and it looked good on that, very slightly bigger screen with maybe some more vibrant colors and darker shadows and whatnot. But I think it looked great, just like I thought it looked great when it was initially revealed. So I thought it was a great game to go with, and it was a nice, change of pace as well for Nintendo.
I just want to shout out, by the way, to that OLED trailer. It is so hilarious that that one girl is playing, but she's playing a trailer for Breath of the Wild. I thought that was super funny. But let's not spend too much time. Yeah, let's not spend too much time on the OLED. Really, there's not a lot to talk about there. If you don't have a Switch, this is probably for you. But if you do, then it's probably not. But I do want to talk about Metroid Dread and Metroid Prime 4. So I was tweeting the other day, and I tweet fast and often, and sometimes it's not always that coherent. But I did tweet out that to me, I feel like Metroid Dread is almost a quote-unquote bigger deal than Metroid Prime 4. And a lot of people kind of responded to that, and I'd love to get your take before I offer any more context. But a lot of people responded to that, and they were just like, yeah, you say that because we can see Metroid Dread. We have it in front of us. We're we don't know anything about Metroid Prime 4 yet. And I feel like they were kind of missing the point. But I'm curious about your take, Dak, because I know that you're a big Metroid Fusion fan and you're a huge Metroid Prime fan. So, what... And listen, they're both big deals, but I mean, where do you kind of weigh in on that right now? On that, not even debate, I guess, but what's the bigger monument to you?
Well, I mean, that's the thing is that, I'm not going to ask you first because I do want to know what you mean. What do you mean by a bigger deal? But I'm just going to give you my answer straight up. I think Metroid Dread is a bigger deal for Metroid fans. Metroid Prime 4, though, is a bigger deal overall, or will be when eventually it exists. That's kind of how I feel about it. And that's why I was like, what do you mean by bigger deal? Because they're both a big deal in different ways. So it's, but from my... because I didn't see your tweet until very long after, and I was like, this has already been kind of done, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. And I also didn't get there early enough to have a funny, witty reply that could get likes, as people arrived. So I was like, whatever. But yeah, that was my initial interpretation as a Metroid fan and as a FPS fan and as just a game. I try to look at it overall like Metroid Dread is a bigger deal for Metroid fans. Metroid Prime 4 will be a bigger deal overall for everybody. That's how I feel.
Actually, that's pretty much, I think, spot on with my underlying. I was going to add context to what I was saying, and I think that's pretty much about as well as I could say it. So when I'm saying that, I'm saying this as a Metroid fan that has that has been with the series, and we've had Fusion on this cliffhanger for a long time.
Yep.
And just the fact that Dread was this. Somebody said in the replies that like at this point Metroid Dread was like the Half-Life 3 or
it was
maybe
the Holy
like
Grail. It was the Holy Grail of Metroid. It was the Half-Life 3.
This is for all the Nintendo fans. It's like localizing Mother 3. Like this is like it's a fabled mythical thing.
It's like localizing Mother 4, bro. Like that's like it's that crazy. 100%. Like that's the thing is that as a Metroid fan, you can't deny the fact that Metroid fans literally have been waiting for this game for so long. Like this is a game that I didn't think would ever exist ever. I thought they would just never come out or whatever. Like the fact that it even exists, they're even calling it that is crazy to me. At the same time, though, we still don't like, and I know other people have said this, but it is important that we haven't seen what Metroid Prime 4 is, and it could be a bigger deal to Metroid fans too, depending on what it is. Because at the end of the day, I think Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a bigger game, right? It's going to be a bigger environment. It's going to have more going on, I think. It'll likely have multiplayer. Like, it's going to be a huge deal. Like, and it's, I think, a game that'll likely sell double what Metroid Dread does. It's a game that I think is going to bring in even...
Wow.
Oh, 100%. Okay. Metroid Prime... Okay. I think Metroid Dread is going to sell 3 million in the first year and likely sell around 5 million overall. And I think Metroid Prime 4 is going to go around 10 million. Like, that's how I'm looking. Like, that is a system seller. Like, Metroid Dread is a system seller game, but, like, that is, like, a AAA system seller game. Like, what they're putting into, like, Retro Studios behind it, the people that they've hired, the scale of what a Metroid Prime game is, the type of game it is, and likely, like, the kind of replay value, all that kind of stuff put together. I can't, like, Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a huge package of a game. It's going to be a crazy game. Metroid Dread is going to be a really good but smaller single-player experience for Metroid fans, but also to create new Metroid fans, right? Metroid Prime 4 is I think, going to be eclipse a lot of that. And the thing is, we haven't seen any of it too. Metroid Prime 4 doesn't have like the development history behind it, and story-wise, the Metroid Prime story has kind of ended, so we don't really know where it can go. But I think that's really why, like, at the same time, it has so much more, not more potential, but has so much potential in and of itself. It could go anywhere. Retro Studios could just literally create the craziest Metroid game of all time. And they might have a more powerful Switch to do so by then. So I think Metroid Prime 4, I think, could also be a bigger deal for Metroid fans. That being said, right now at the moment, I still think I have to give that edge to Dread just because, again, we do know more about it, but it is what it is. It's that holy grail. It's the Half-Life 2 or Half-Life 3, right? Like it is the game that we have been waiting for, and we have finally gotten it. So 100%, I think it is a big deal for Metroid fans in that way right now, and more so than Metroid Prime 4.
Well, I think to add even more context to what I was saying here, I agree with what you're saying. Actually, I don't agree. I'm not convinced that Metroid Prime 4 is going to have multiplayer, but other than that,
it's going to.
100%. I agree with what you're saying. But the thing is like Metroid Prime. So Metroid Dread is like the conclusion. It's an ending, and it's the it's the holy grail. It's what we've all been waiting for so long. Whereas Metroid Prime 4 will undoubtedly be a massive, huge deal, especially if it launches on, I don't know, let's call it the Super Switch
Pro.
Yeah, the new Nintendo Switch, or whatever it ends up being.
Just call it that. I don't even care.
I hope it's called that.
That would be fun.
Nintendo Switch OLED 2. But so that will undoubtedly be a massive, massive deal. And I think that, by and large, over the years, like, people have equated Metroid Prime with consoles, which is typically a much
Yes.
bigger experience, and you equated 2D Metroid with handheld because, my God, the last time we had a handheld Metroid was like 25 years ago, or a 2D Metroid that wasn't on a handheld was 25 years ago. But so I think that inherently there's that kind of bias towards Metroid Prime 4. But, to add even more context, I think that because Metroid Prime 4 is a beginning, like I feel like this will probably be a beginning of like a new series or a new arc, let's
I
just say,
agree.
that'll span a couple games. So like in that way, I feel like the ending is always a kind of a bigger deal than the beginning. Not always, but just generally speaking. But I also feel like in terms of like maybe just in general too, I feel like Metroid Dread, I don't know if I'd call it a bigger deal than Metroid Prime 4 in this aspect, but like I think the fact that Dread is releasing is going to create like so many new Metroid fans that maybe wouldn't have checked out Metroid Prime 4 beforehand. So I feel like Metroid Dread is also a really big deal, generally speaking, to the general public in that way as well. Whereas, like, obviously Metroid Prime 4, I think just inherently being like this big, gorgeous, open world, like first person shooter game, that's going to be a big deal. AAA as they come, but I think that more people are going to check that out because of what Metroid Dread has laid down before it. So adding all that into context, even though they're completely different types of games, I feel like the Metroid name is going to get like a boost and it's going to have some cachet behind it. So adding all that into context and boiling it and serving it up in a nice stew, I think that Metroid Dread is the bigger deal than Metroid Prime 4. And I hate saying bigger deal, but I
It's
don't
not
know,
a
maybe
competition,
more.
Andy.
It's not, and I don't mean it out
There's
to
room for
be.
both.
But I'm trying to
Maybe more like, and I don't know. I mean, I get what you're saying.
help me find my eloquent way of saying this here.
I'm
It's
not entirely sure how you want to phrase it, but I mean, I agree and disagree with your last point because I do think there will be, like, Metroid Dread is 100%. It already confirmed is going to be. It's going to be bringing in new people to the series, and then those people who are then new to the series, yeah, they'll inevitably check out Metroid Prime 4 now. That said, I still think Metroid Prime 4 is going to bring in people that would never, like, they weren't going to check out the 2D Metroids. Like, they were never going to. I know people that aren't going to because they're not interested in playing a 2D side-scrolling adventure game. It's not the scale of game that they're looking for. I know that they're going to play Metroid Prime 4 because that's just a different type of game and it's a bigger type of game. So I agree and disagree because Dread is 100% going to be bringing in new people that might not have checked out Metroid Prime 4, but the game itself is going to be bringing in a lot of people that I don't think would have been swayed by Dread at all, regardless, because it's just it is still a different. I think this different styles in game is still significant. While I will agree that there will be some crossover, I think on its own it's going to be a huge deal regardless of what other 2D Metroids are coming out. Notwithstanding the fact that I'm happy that Dread is coming out because not only am I happy for the game, but that 100% will bring in a lot of new people. But I think you're underestimating how big of a deal Metroid Prime 4 will be when we do see it. Like when
it'll be huge. Don't get me wrong.
I don't think they're bringing that's the thing is I don't think they're bringing back either Metroid Dread or the Metroid Prime series for no reason, right? Like they went all out of their way to bring back the Metroid Dread idea, so we know that they're going to I mean, I'm pretty convinced that they're going to deliver, and it seems like they're going to. If they're going to go out of the way to bring back Metroid Prime, Metroid Prime in general, like and even restart development, I think they're really going to deliver. And again, like especially from the hires they've had, like I think it's going to be no joke. And honestly, the fact that we can even have this debate right now is awesome. Like, which game's going to be a bigger deal? Like, not too long ago, neither of them were going to be a big deal because one didn't exist and one pretty much barely exists. So it's great that we can even discuss this. And I like that there will be some competition, I think, and that people even have these varying opinions. And I still agree. Metroid Dread is a huge deal, specifically for Metroid fans right now, more so than Metroid Prime 4. But I think time will tell to see how that changes, and I think that's a good thing because if every new Metroid game rivals and beats the next, that's only better for us, right? Like we're 100% getting more 2D Metroids too. I can't wait to see like what the next 2D Metroid could be. So I'm glad that they're trying to, outdo themselves in a way, and that even people are concerned whether or not it might happen. But I still think we got to see some Metroid Prime 4 before we start making a call like this. For me, I can't claim that one game is bigger of a deal than the other, really, when one of them we've only seen the title. I think it's not on my good conscience, not a good judgment call. But I see the points that you're making, and honestly, I don't think you're necessarily wrong. I agree with a lot of what you're saying.
So actually, I want to follow up on something that you said as well, because you were saying, a lot of people that they don't want to play a 2D game. And I totally get that. I know that there are people out there that don't want to do that. But I think that that's an opportunity, really, because, there are some people that are they're not going to play a 2D Metroid. There are some people that just don't like first-person shooter games. They're not going to play a Metroid Prime.
Very true.
Both of those people exist. But I think that maybe just by virtue that Dread is coming out first, but it has the opportunity to, tell people, I know that you're not a fan of first-person shooter games, John Adams up in New York.
John Adams?
Yeah, well, that was the first name I could think of.
In New York?
John Smith. How about John
Constitutional
Smith?
America? What are we doing here? It's fine.
Is John Smith good? I knew a Jeff Smith. Maybe we'll use him.
Jeff Smith. There we go. Jeff
Smith. I know that you're not a fan of first-person shooter games. But I know that you're also a fan of this 2D Metroid game, so give this game a chance. And I feel like that loop can work the other way around, too, where it's
cool.
And not for everyone, but man, I know that you only like first-person shooter games, John, but you should try out this 2D game, because it's got some elements, too. So I think
man,
there's kind
I'm
of
biased.
a nice harmony.
I'm biased, right? that I'm Team Metroid Prime 4 all the way through. But yeah, no, I agree. There's an opportunity there. I think that's a great thing about what Dread is doing. Like I was talking about earlier, is it's not only a game for Metroid fans who've been waiting for this for so long, but it's a huge opportunity and is going to bring in a ton of new people who have never played Metroid before. And what Sakamoto talked about, whether it's a 3D Metroid, 2D Metroid, transfers either way. He talked about what Metroid is at its core, and I think it sounded really enticing. So I think it will bring in a lot of new people. I would, maybe you'll prove me wrong. I feel like I'm pretty set on how the games are going to sell, and I think that's really fine. I think if Dread sells 3 to 5 million, I think that would be a huge success.
That's a huge success.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Success. So that's what I'm looking for here, and I think that'd be great. I think Metroid Prime 4 can and will beat that, but that's a discussion for another time. Dread in and of itself has already established itself to be a really big deal for Nintendo fans in general, and I will think it'll be a system seller for some people too.
So before we get out of here, Dak, I want to give a plug to our buddies over at World 1-1 podcast. They released a new podcast called the Phazon Labs. You and I were guests on some of their first shows, and the episode is finally released, and pretty much all of it is obsolete by now, but you can hear my pitch for a potential Metroid 5 game. This was before Metroid Dread was announced. I called it Splinter Cell because I couldn't think of anything else to call it. Actually, I think they named it Splinter Cell, but whatever. But go listen to that. I will say at least I got something right. At least I got the camouflage suit part right. So I'll pat myself on the back there. But it's pretty funny. You can hear Dak and I argue about Metroid 5. You should give it a listen. I had a good time doing this.
Yeah,
Dak hated it, which means that you know that it's a good idea. Oh yeah, you did.
I mean, hey, we've grown over time, so I don't want to go back and listen to his argue, but I'm sure it'll be very enjoyable. I will check it out. So shout outs to them for
grown
sure.
Over did you grow in the last 4 weeks?
Hey man, I just underwent a serious illness, and I'm having new outlooks on life, man.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe I'll go back to my old ways. We'll see.
What do you think of Other M?
I mean, one thing I love about this video is how Sakamoto says specifically, this is a line from the video, I'm quoting it. This is the first new story and new episode for the series in 19 years. That's because Other M added nothing new. Nothing. Get out of here with that trash. Except the cool finishing moves in the opening scene where they redo Super Metroid. That's some cool stuff right there.
Fantoon is cool too.
Yeah. Yes, Fantoon cool. Is also really cool, yes.
There's some redeeming qualities there.
Let's not go that far. Let's not go that far. Yeah.
Well, we hope that this episode had at least a few redeeming qualities here and there. We are going to get out of here. That is putting a bow on all of the new Metroid Dread content and video that we've seen and maybe will see up until the game's release on October the 8th. So really looking forward to seeing, what's next. And of course, we are going to keep this train going. We got a lot more stuff coming down the tube, and we won't stop until the 8th, and we have Dread in our hands. We're going to get out of here, though. We want you to check us out over on Twitter at Omega Metroid Pod. I am at Spateri316. Dak is at DakCity_. And we are available over on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Like and subscribe. If you know any new Metroid fans in the last month, make sure that they are checking out the Omega Metroid Pod. Until next week, everybody, take care.